Hello and welcome to True North EV. My name's James. This podcast, we talk about all things electric vehicles here in the Great White North. Today we're diving into what might be the biggest EV news story to hit Canada in years. On January 16th, 2026, Prime Minister Mark Carney announced a landmark trade deal with China that's going to fundamentally change the Canadian electric vehicle market. And folks, I'm going to be honest with you. I think this is fantastic news for Canadian consumers. Before we get into it, I want to remind you to check out Manitoba Electric Vehicle Association at manitobaev.ca. If you're in Manitoba and interested in EVs, this is your community. And if you want to get in touch with us, email truenorthevpodcast@gmail.com. All right, let's get into this. So here's what's happened. Prime Minister Mark Carney just wrapped up the first official visit to China by a Canadian Prime Minister since 2017. And he came home with a trade agreement that's going to open up our borders to Chinese electric vehicles in a way we haven't seen before. Starting very soon, sooner rather than later, Canada will allow up to 49,000 Chinese-made electric vehicles into the country every year at a tariff of just 6.1%. Now, if you've been following EV news, you know that's a massive change from where we were at. Under the previous government, Canada had slapped a 100% tariff on Chinese EVs back in 2024, actually keeping them out of our market entirely. This new quota of 49,000 vehicles represents about 3% of Canada's total new vehicle market. That might sound small, but here's where it gets interesting. By 2030, that quota increases to 70,000 vehicles. And here's the kicker. The government expects that at least half of those vehicles will have an import price under $35,000 Canadian. Let me repeat that. Under $35,000 for a brand new electric vehicle. When you compare that to the average price of a new EV in Canada right now, which is hovering around $67,000, you can see why this is such a big deal for consumers. For those that might even be saying, well, get a gas vehicle, the average price of all vehicles right now, brand new vehicles, is in that $60,000 to $65,000 range. So they're all in that $60,000. Now, this wasn't just a one-way street. In exchange for opening our market to these Chinese EVs, China's dropping tariffs on Canadian imports. Specifically, canola seed tariffs dropped from 84% to about 15%. Tariffs removed on Canadian canola meal, lobsters, crabs, and peas. This unlocks about $3 billion in export orders for Canadian farmers and fishers. The government is also saying they expect significant Chinese investment in Canadian auto manufacturing through joint ventures within the next 3 years. And this is really important, especially for Ontario workers who've been hit hard by automotive job losses. Here's the thing. We've just seen major automotive manufacturers either scale back or leave Canada for the United States. Thousands of good-paying manufacturing jobs have disappeared, but Chinese investment in joint ventures could actually reverse that trend. Think about it. If Chinese companies like BYD want to serve the North American market, setting up manufacturing in Canada makes strategic sense. They avoid tariffs on finished vehicles. They gain access to Canadian critical minerals for batteries. And they can employ Canadian workers who already have automotive manufacturing expertise. We've already seen this model work in other countries. Chinese EV companies have set up joint ventures in Thailand, Brazil, and several European nations, creating thousands of jobs. There's no reason Canada can't be part of that story, especially given our advantages in clean energy and mineral resources. For Ontario specifically, this could mean battery manufacturing plants, assembly facilities, and supply chain jobs, potentially in the same communities that lost jobs when traditional automakers pulled back. The workers who built cars in Oshawa or Windsor have the skills these new manufacturers need. Okay, so let me tell you why I'm excited about this and why I think this addresses the two biggest complaints I hear from people about electric vehicles. Complaint number one, EVs are too expensive. This is the number one thing I hear. I'd love to go electric, but I can't afford a $70,000 car. And you know what? They're absolutely right. The average Canadian can't afford that. Chinese manufacturers like BYD, which just became the world's largest EV seller, by the way, have been producing quality electric vehicles at much lower price points. We're talking about vehicles like the BYD Atto 3, which is comparable to a Tesla Model Y in size, but could potentially sell in the $30,000 to $40,000 range. The BYD Dolphin, a smaller hatchback that could come in even cheaper. BYD Seagull, which in China sells for the equivalent of $11,000 to $17,000. Even with import costs, this could potentially be under $20,000 in Canada, which is a fantastic price for a first vehicle. Now, I'm not saying these exact models will come here, or at least at these prices, but you get the idea. We're talking about vehicles that could be half the price of what's currently available. The complaint number two that I hear is range anxiety. I constantly hear, I can't find a charger, I'm going to run out of juice in the middle of winter. Here's the thing. A lot of these Chinese EVs that are coming to the market with very competitive or even superior range compared to what we have now. BYD, for example, has been developing battery technology that's rivaling Tesla. More competition means more innovation, which means better batteries and longer ranges across the board. Plus, when EVs become more affordable and more Canadians start buying them, you know what happens? The charging infrastructure improves because there's more demand. It's a positive feedback loop. And this is what I'm most excited about. Competition. Right now, legacy automakers have been dragging their feet on affordable EVs. They've been focusing on high-margin luxury EVs and trucks. But when BYD and other Chinese manufacturers show up with $30,000 EVs that actually work well, Ford, GM, Stellantis, and even Tesla are going to have to compete on price. That's economics 101. Competition benefits consumers. Now, I want to be balanced here because not everybody is happy about this deal, and I think it's important to address those concerns. Ontario Premier Doug Ford came out swinging against this deal. He called it lopsided and warned that it gives China a foothold in Canada's market at the expense of Canadian workers. He's worried about job losses in Ontario's auto sector, which employs over 90,000 people. The Auto Workers Union, Unifor, also called this a self-inflicted wound to an already struggling Canadian auto industry. Their national president, Lena Payne, said it puts Canadian auto jobs at risk while rewarding unfair trade practices. These are legitimate concerns. Ontario builds a lot of vehicles, and if Chinese EVs start taking market share, there could be an impact on those jobs. The other big concern is how this affects our relationship with the U.S. The U.S. still has those 100% tariffs on Chinese EVs in place. Some people worry that by diverging from U.S. policy, we're creating friction with our largest trading partner. Interestingly, though, President Trump himself said the deal was a good thing and that Carney should pursue trade deals where he can get them. Look, I understand the concern about auto jobs. Nobody wants to see people lose their livelihoods. But here's the reality. The Canadian auto industry has been declining for years, well before Chinese EVs were even a factor. Traditional automakers have been losing market share globally because they've been slow to innovate. The government is saying this deal will actually bring Chinese investments into Canada auto manufacturing through joint ventures. If that happens, we could see battery factories, assembly plants, and other facilities being built here, creating new jobs or at least keeping those that are part of that 90,000 employees, keeping them working. Yes, I know they might not all be union jobs for now, but maybe someday, right? As for the U.S. relationship, Canada needs to look out for Canada. We can't just follow American policy blindly, especially when it's hurting our consumers and our farmers. The fact that this deal helps canola farmers and fisheries while also helping EV buyers shows it's addressing multiple Canadian interests. So, let's talk about what you might actually be able to buy soon. Based on what's available globally, here are some likely candidates. BYD is the biggest one to watch out for. They're now the world's largest EV manufacturer, and they're already selling in dozens of countries. Some models that could come to Canada is the BYD Atto 3, a compact SUV similar size to the Model Y, currently selling overseas in the 30 to 40,000 range. BYD Dolphin, a smaller hatchback, great for city driving, very affordable. And BYD Seagull, an ultra-compact, ultra-affordable option that could revolutionize urban transportation. BYD Seal, a sedan that competes directly with the Tesla Model 3. Now here's one I'm particularly excited for Canadian drivers, the BYD Shark. This is a plug-in hybrid mid-sized truck, and it could be a game changer for Canadians who need a truck but want to reduce their gas consumption. The Shark is a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle, so it has a gasoline engine that acts as the generator for electric motor. This gives you the best of both worlds. You can drive on pure electric for your daily commute, but you've got the gasoline backup for longer trips or heavy towing. Let me give you the specifics on range because this is impressive. The Shark has a 29.6 kilowatt battery pack. That's a decent size battery for a plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. Pure electric range is about 100 kilometers. That means most Canadians could do their entire daily commute without burning a drop of gasoline. Combined range in hybrid mode is 800 kilometers. That's massive. You could drive from Toronto to Ottawa and back on a single tank. Or for us here in Manitoba, you could drive Winnipeg to Thompson. That's 761 kilometers on a single tank without stopping for gas. Think about that for a second. DC fast charging support, it can charge from 20 to 80% in just 30 minutes, which is faster than most PHEVs out there. Kinetic energy recovery. This is cool. Going downhill, the truck actually recovers energy and charges the battery. So on those long downhill stretches in the Rockies or heading down from cottage country, you're putting power back into the battery, which most fully electrics have. What makes the Shark interesting for the Canadian market? It competes directly with trucks like the Ford Ranger in size and capability. That 100-kilometer range means most people could commute all week without using gas. The quick acceleration and modern tech features that rival anything from legacy automakers. It's built for real truck duty, not just a car pretending to be a truck. In Canada, we love our trucks. The F-150 is consistently our best-selling vehicle, but we're also dealing with high gas prices, and we care about emissions. And with everything that's going on, you know, we're looking at changes, right? The Shark offers a middle ground. You get your truck capabilities, but with dramatically lower fuel costs and emissions for everyday driving. Now, the Shark isn't a full EV. It is a plug-in hybrid, but that might actually be perfect for a lot of Canadians who are nervous about going fully electric. You get to experience electric driving for most of your trips. Don't have range anxiety on that camping trip to northern Ontario or that run to the cottage in winter. With 800 kilometers of combined range, you're not stopping to charge on most road trips. The Shark would compete with vehicles like the Ford Ranger plug-in hybrid electric if it comes to Canada, and offers a different approach than fully electric 50 Lightnings or the Chevy Silverado EV. It's also giving Canadians more choice. Other brands like the Neo, Zeekr, even Xiaomi, yes, the phone company, makes EVs, could potentially enter the market. These companies have been developing cutting-edge technology and attractive designs. Interestingly, this deal could actually help Tesla too. Tesla currently faces a 25% tariff on vehicles imported from the US because of the whole trade situation, but Tesla manufactures the Model 3 in Shanghai. Under this new agreement, Tesla could potentially import the Model 3 from China at the 6.1% tariff instead of paying 25% to bring them from California. That could mean lower prices for the Model 3 in Canada. The Model Y is also already being imported from Tesla's Berlin factory to avoid those US tariffs. So Tesla has been adapting. There's other companies also like Buick and Honda that make other EVs just for the Chinese auto scene that could potentially come this way also. So, when can you actually go buy one of these Chinese EVs? According to the agreement, these changes could start happening very soon. The canola tariff reductions are expected by March 1st, 2026, so the EV quota should be implemented around the same time frame. However, there's a process Chinese manufacturers will need to first get their vehicles certified to meet Canadian safety standards, second, establish dealer networks or direct sales infrastructure, and third, set up services and warranty support. The government said they'll work with Chinese automakers on timely vehicle certification, so it sounds like they're trying to speed up that process. My guess, we could probably start seeing these vehicles available by late 2026, with more options rolling out in 2027 and beyond. If you're looking in the market for an EV, I'd say hold off if you can wait 6 to 12 months to see what new options emerge. Keep an eye on what models get certified for Canada. Watch how legacy automakers respond. We might see price cuts on existing models, and start searching Chinese EV brands so you're more informed when they arrive. Now, let's zoom out for a minute and talk about what this means for Canada's climate goals and the broader EV transition. Canada has committed to net zero emissions by 2050. Transportation is one of the biggest sources of greenhouse gas emissions. Getting more Canadians into EVs is absolutely critical to meeting those goals. But here's the thing. If EVs are only affordable for wealthy Canadians, we're never going to hit these targets. We need EVs for everyone, and that means we need affordable options. According to Clean Energy Canada, Canada was potentially the only country in the world last year where EV sales actually declined. That's embarrassing. And it's a direct result of policy decisions that made EVs less affordable and less available. This deal could be the course correction we need. 1 in 4 new passenger vehicles sold globally in 2025 was electric. Let me say that again. 25% of new cars worldwide are now electric. Meanwhile, Canada's EV adoption has been lagging. Chinese manufacturers are leading the global EV revolution. Whether we like it or not, they've invested heavily in battery technology, manufacturing efficiency, and vehicle design. Other countries are benefiting from the innovation. Europe has 21 EV models under $40,000 available. Before this deal, Canada had 1. By opening our market, we're joining the rest of the world instead of isolating ourselves. This isn't about just buying Chinese cars. This agreement talks about joint ventures and investment in Canadian auto manufacturing. If done right, this could mean battery manufacturing facilities in Canada, assembly plants employing Canadian workers, technology transfer that helps Canadian companies catch up, demand for Canadian critical minerals like lithium, nickel, cobalt. Canada has enormous reserves of the minerals needed for EV batteries. We should be leveraging that advantage. And that also benefits in so many more provinces than just the auto manufacturing of Ontario. So here's my bottom line on this whole thing. This deal is good for Canadian consumers, period. For too long, we've been told we have to wait, that EVs are too expensive, that the technology isn't ready. Meanwhile, the rest of the world has been moving forward. This deal brings Canada back into the game. Yes, there are legitimate concerns about auto industry jobs, and yes, we need to make sure there are protections and support for workers who might be affected. But the answer isn't to keep Canadian consumers locked out of affordable EVs while the rest of the world moves forward. The 2 biggest complaints I hear about EVs are price and range. This deal directly addresses the price issue, and the increased competition will drive innovation that addresses range. I'm optimistic. I think we're going to look back at this in a few years and see it as the moment Canada's EV market finally got serious. Before you go, I want to give a big shout out to Bodhi and his podcast Kilowatt. Seriously, go take a listen to it. It's fantastic. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. It really helps other EV enthusiasts find our show. And if you have a topic you'd like us to cover, send us your suggestions at truenorthevpodcast@gmail.com. And thanks for listening to True North EV. I'm James, and I'll talk to you next time.